Thanks, you guys. This is literally, you guys are all legends. So
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep it saying that stuff. I like it.
Yeah, Zach, I love that you were wishing you had an hour, man.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
You know, I always think I'm just gonna touch in on something, and then I just get all caught up in the conversation. It takes forever.
Yes.
But I promised that I wasn't going to talk during this time because I just want to hear from Jay and D.
You're going to let them go at it.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a good amount here, 191 people live streaming here. Awesome. Can you guys all see the questions that people are asking there?
Yeah, you know, it's really fun to look at these questions, you know, and there are a couple of good questions about zoning. And Jason and Zach, is there a session tomorrow or Sunday that's focused on zoning? Would that?
Yeah, you go for it.
There are a couple of talks more, I guess, targeted towards regulations and zoning. Lindsay will be doing a pretty in-depth talk on that sort of stuff as well. And then there's going to be, I think, a Q&A with Nick Mosley, which he knows a lot of that. There's a couple other people who know quite a bit as well. So there's definitely some others, but you guys you guys know a ton too. So,
Yeah, I think zoning is something that everybody that's interested in tiny houses needs to know a little bit about.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's the big barrier, and it's what's kind of holding the whole thing back from being a real tool to actually impact society.
Yeah.
But progress is being made. It's insane. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it just seems like it's like walking through water with cement in your feet and trying to get kind of actual progress. It just seems like it's taken so long and it's been so hard. And
Definitely.
Say again?
Starting a business trying to sell quasi-illegal stuff is not easy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I know
it's impressive how many people do it.
Yeah, it is.
As far as zoning goes, we're getting some questions about that, and I know Lindsay's going to offer some more information about that. Zach, I know you've been super involved with that, and Jay, over time you've been doing a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So what I just wanted to offer is that the best way to get information about where you live is to contact the local planner. So somebody had a question like on the Western Slope in Colorado. I know Boulder has been doing a ton of work. Denver has been doing work on that stuff. But I would contact the planners to find out kind of what their take is on tiny. It's being discussed. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I'll just say in terms of code, just to give people a kind of broad idea about the code and the challenges, is that, tiny homes on wheels are a lot different than tiny home on a foundation in terms of the difficulties of actually constructing one legally and living in it full time, right? So tiny home on wheels is it needs to be kind of delineated a little bit when you're talking about it. And the real challenges facing tiny homes on wheels is that they really, when I first did one, it basically, they looked at me in the county and I wanted maybe to see if there was an inspection, and they told me, oh, it's a trailer. It's got lights. They work. It's under the weight ratio. And they told me you're allowed to modify a trailer. Right. But most tiny homes that are being built and sold and lived in are being built as RVs. And so the real challenges for zoning codes is that the whole world is looking at a tiny home as an RV, and RVs aren't allowed to be lived in. And it's just really cut and dry like that.
Yeah,
but there's changes being made.
Jinx. Yes, changes. Well, the thing about laws is that they have to address public health, safety, and welfare. And a lot of these things are changing because people are realizing, what the heck, does the size of the house pertain to safety? And it turns out smaller houses are safer because of seismic engineering and stuff. Small is the first criteria in preparing for earthquakes. So they're changing stuff out here in California, San Diego, well, actually all over the nation. It's looking better and better.
So somebody just sent a question in asking about why tiny house on wheels isn't considered a mobile home. And so the way that I've kind of tried to explain it to folks is that when I look at my tiny house on wheels, I see a little tiny cabin. I see home. When the DMV, when I went in to get the license plate thing on the trailer, they called it a trailer with an art sculpture stapled to the top of it. They called it a trailer. When I talked to the insurance company, they called it an RV. However, because it wasn't a certified unit, it wasn't really considered an RV. So I couldn't get insurance. I couldn't get a loan. This is pretty standard, and that world is changing a little bit. But there are all these people the city code folks that came out and took a look at my house. I invited them to come out and take a look, and what they saw was a travel trailer. So everybody has their own definition, and I think that's why there's some confusion around a DIY, a do-it-yourself tiny house on wheels, is that it doesn't neatly fit into any of these boxes. So if you're talking to your city planner, you have to kind of explain some stuff to them, and that could be an awkward conversation. But that doesn't mean that they're not open to having it. I think folks understand we need affordable housing. We need more housing for folks, and more than anything else, so many of these little houses are so damn cute. It's like nobody's going to kick a puppy. Nobody's going to throw a kitten in the street. So I think there's wiggle room to be able to figure that out. Is that what Zack? I'm looking over here. Is that what you found?
Yes, at her. No other way.
That's exactly. Well, I think I see a question that says, in light of the recession, how do you think tiny homes will play a role? And my belief that it's really about support structures. It's about, as we get through these, in order to get through these challenges, doing whatever we can as a society to allow people to help out others and to utilize their property to allow others a place to go and a place to live, is going to really empower people to get through these hard times. And that's what I really just believe. It's about, it comes down to support structures. All the work that I do with homeless and homeless veterans, it's really one lesson that's been very, very clear, is that people don't just end up in the street. They run through villages and they go through their support structures until there's nothing left. And that's made harder by the zoning policies that inhibit homeowners and family members from being able to provide good places for people to go easily and legally. So that's
it depends so much on
that's my short version of it.
I actually am happy to hear. I'm happy to hear that we use the same classification, or at least was aware of it. I've always just called my houses a load on a flatbed trailer, and that's always worked. So it doesn't have to be all that complicated, and it certainly doesn't have to be illegal. And it's important to remember that this isn't all about houses on wheels either. I've worked on a lot of foundation houses that are tiny as well, and it's not that hard now to meet the code or the zoning, because they changed it from needing a 120 square foot room down to 70 square feet. So now you can pretty much build a tiny house like these or mine. Well, not mine right now. Mine's way too tiny to be legal. But you can do that legally now. Like you can build a house that's just 70 square feet, or at least under 100, and do it legally.
So somebody asked, kind of along the same stream. It seems like another question that somebody asked is, so if you build it yourself and it's a tiny house on a utility trailer, say, or a gooseneck trailer or a trailer of some sort, how can you get it certified? And by getting it certified, you have an opportunity to get insurance a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I know in the state of Oregon, and I would check with your state or your or I know not everybody's in the U.S., but check with the folks that license cars and trucks and trailers. And in Oregon, you can request that they come out. Somebody from the DMV will come out and do an inspection of your tiny house and the trailer to make sure that it is a compliant travel trailer. And you pay them like $50 for the inspection, and they certify it. And the way it works is you can only get one certification per person per trailer house. And after you get that certification from the DMV, then it opens up all kinds of opportunities. But I don't know, they don't do that in Washington State, but I check with, your locals.
There's a number of different third-party tiny home inspection bodies,
Cool.
Billsworth and NOAA, and but the one of the problems is that certification isn't necessarily recognized as an RV per se, but there are a lot of places like the places that have made changes in Los Angeles and now San Jose and hopefully San Diego that are recognizing those third-party bodies inspection.
Yeah, a woman or a guy named Alexis referenced tiny house certifiers and inspectors at www.tinyhomeindustry.association.org. So that might be a good resource. I'm not familiar with them.
But I don't know. Have you guys ever? I wanted to ask, did you ever insure your homes? Like your personal home, did you ever get it insured?
No.
Yeah, we certified ours through. There was a underwriter in Portland that specifically was offering products for tiny houses on wheels that were built by individuals. And it was through Lloyd's of London was ultimately the underwriter in that case. And then there are other companies that are building that actually certify. I think Tumbleweed has a certified travel trailer RV. I don't know what their certification is.
Yeah, they're. I believe they have classification as a park model RV, which is a large RV.
My belief is that the much more important reason for certification isn't necessarily insurance as much as financing, as much as allowing banks to really quantify the value of these tiny homes, because that's this piece of the puzzle. People look at it and they say, oh, tiny homes, yeah, but they're not really that inexpensive. They're, a nice tiny home for a professional builder, and it kind of pops their dream for them. But the real problem is that they're not actually getting treated the same way other homes do when we're offering financing packages. And if you applied the same kind of requirements for down payments and for interest rates, your principals, you would end up with a package that would be amazing how affordable it would be. And so that's another big piece of this challenge, I think, and the reason for certification.
Somebody else just asked a question, and I'll direct this to the three of you guys. So they have a 25-foot RV trailer. So maybe it had an RV on it and it got scabbed off. If you were to offer recommendations on a thumbs up, thumbs down on that, what's your opinion on that? I have an opinion, but I want to hear from you guys.
I would just say that there's very few trailers that are built for RVs and travel trailers that are done for the weight requirements that are going to be needed for a tiny home.
Bingo, bingo.
Oh, that's what she was pitching for.
But if it was me, but if I had a home and I knew I was only going to move it like on a property, like it was on a farm, I might consider building a home on a trailer that wasn't really intended on taking down the road. But that's artistic.
My brother built a tiny house the year after I did. He didn't want to deal with the trailer because I spent a lot of time looking at the trailer design and trying to figure out the engineering around that. And he didn't want to have to think around with that, so he built it on skids. And the idea was that he could pull it around his farm, have a summer orientation, have a winter orientation. And years later, he decided to move into the city, and he hired those tiny shed movers at Home Depot or Lowe's or something, and you can get them to kind of forklift up this tiny house and move it somewhere. So he hired them, and they came and picked it up, and for $300, he moved it from out in the country into town. They placed it perfectly on the property that he had in town, and bingo, bongo, bongo, no trailer, and it worked great.
It was probably cheaper than renting a commercial mover to just tow a tiny place.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And way cheaper than a trailer, but it's not quite for everybody.
Right.
I should mention maybe that what I've been doing for the last few years is designing and building houses that sit on the ground but can be easily lifted onto a flatbed. And then you can just bolt it to the flatbed forever if you want, but you have the flexibility that way. And I guess this is a nice dovetail into Alexis's question. Yes, I've got too many designs these days. I haven't put them out for a long time, so it's about time. Thanks for spurring me on.
We want more.
Zack?
What's that?
I like your product placement. I reinforce it. The Giffin grip is awesome. I've seen it in person.
Oh, yes. If people don't know about the Giffin grip, let me show you. This is a business that my father started in Banner, and I've been much more involved since COVID. Basically because they're older people and he's kind of like trying to keep it going, and we got to figure out new solutions for how we're going to keep them with an income, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, here's another good question. What are the biggest changes you've seen in the movement? And this was a question for Jay and I. And the thing that's changed since I built my house, and Jay, this is really a question for you, but what I've seen is that's fascinating to me is the commercialization of tiny and moving from it kind of being a little bit of a grassroots wacky thing to being people know what it is now. It's like where was it? Oh, I was renting a car in Kansas City, and I gave my email address, which is @PadTinyHouses, and the woman renting me this car in Kansas City was like, "Oh, do you know about tiny houses?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "I love them," and it's just like it's just a lot more out there. What's your take, Jay?
About the evolution of the tiny house stuff?
Or just what are the biggest changes that you've seen in the movement?
Well, in the beginning, I would say to people, "Yeah, I'm a tiny house guy," and they're like, "What's a tiny house?" And now people are like, "Which one of the tiny house guys are you?" But
You're You're the only guy.
I always aspired to see a lot of people doing it because I thought it worked so well for me, and I'm glad to see it's gotten huge internationally. I do realize now that recently that I would prefer to control the entire tiny house world, but that ain't happening because sometimes when bigger businesses get into it, things happen. So, but we've managed to hold on to the integrity so far.
I would just
I guess
comment
the other
on that.
sorry.
I would just say my thought about the biggest change is that I feel like in the beginning a larger part of the emphasis and percentage of people moving into it was done by people really looking at themselves as minimalists and wanting to move into a minimalist capacity, and more from kind of an environmental perspective and environmental motivations. Now that it's kind of gotten more out into the mainstream culture, a larger percentage of people that are looking at being interested in it are more just looking at the finances of it and just removing the financial burden. And that is, it's not a thing that I like or dislike. It's just a common, just something I've noticed.
I guess just to chime in, one last thing that I think I've seen change a lot is just the brilliant people that are involved now. The more information that's out there, the more we get this hotbed of creativity, design, people rethinking why we live the way we live, how we can accommodate folks who have less. I've talked a lot with folks about privilege of deciding to downsize versus being trapped in a cycle of poverty and not having that choice. And so it brings it, you're talking about a tiny house, but all of a sudden you're talking about very important social norms and really important issues that we all need to put our brain towards and our hearts toward. So, Zack, you've done that in spades, and I've really appreciated the work that you're doing with a lot of different populations and trying to get the word out about affordable housing and how tiny houses can fit into that, but a much broader conversation about affordable housing and stuff like that. So I think that's cool.
There are so many questions, it's hard to know which one to choose, much less actually read them as we're trying to converse. Somebody makes a point that maybe instead of Dee having to read while she presents, we could have a translator.
Well, there was one question about tornadoes. You guys want to answer that? You ever worry about tornadoes? How about theft, too?
Yeah, that last part of that question, the theft part, I got that question a lot. Like it was the number one question for a while. What if somebody steals your tiny house? Which I always kind of discuss because to me it seems really easy to protect your house, lock it up at the hitch. There are hitch locks. If you want to go farther, put the wheel locks in, like the police, jack, whatever things, or there, you can go all the way if you want. Just clamp the whole thing down to the ground with some piers and items.
Yeah, there's also some GPS trackers that you can get that have like a 3-year battery life, and you can hide them somewhere in your tiny home. And if somebody tries to take it, then you can just track exactly right where it is. So,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What was the first part of that question, Dee? Theft and
tornadoes.
Tornadoes. Yeah, well, I don't worry about them too much in California, but I did spend about 5 years in my tiny house in Iowa, which in Iowa City was hit by a pretty huge tornado. And I never worried too much because I had tie down. Just tie it down, in many ways, it's safer than a larger house because of the seismic strength of a smaller structure again. Otherwise, you'd be like Dorothy trying to build in your house.
Hey, there's another question on here for you. Do you have to have an architectural degree or engineering degree to start a tiny house building company?
No. Or at least, maybe I should have gotten one of those, but no. I don't think so. I never went to architecture school either.
Zach, were you going to say something?
No. I like you just talking. I'm not sure my connection's doing very well.
It's cutting out a little bit, but I think people probably think you're so damn cute they don't care.
Oh, I told people I wasn't going to hog the airwaves on this because I'm just honored to be here and just stoked to hear what you guys have to say. I would like to have some more questions about, what's going on nowadays with COVID-19 and looking at where we're going and what your guys is. I just kind of did a talk about that same kind of idea, but to hear your perspective on how tiny homes are going to help us move through this.
It makes me sad to think about how necessary tiny houses are going to be after the shelter in place is lifted. I hate to think of all the people not making enough money. That's scary to me. So I think that, as always, the demand just gets bigger and bigger. Like every year, I'm just surprised by the way that goes. It was like 20 years ago. You Google small house, you get these pictures of 2,000 square foot houses because that was small. And now that's obviously a very different story because they've become so big since then, year by year, exponentially it seems. I see that our time is almost up. That makes me panicky, but let's get a question in. Now I feel like choosing one at random. Or somebody choose one at random, please. Oh, are we all in our tiny houses? And why not? Why freaking not? I added that one for drama. I am not. I am at a friend's house. I've been sheltering in place at a friend's house for 6 weeks.
I saw a question about if everybody lives in tiny houses, what are we going to do with all these big homes? And, I don't really think that that's an issue at all. I just think that what we have is we have a housing stock that's very misaligned with the needs of the population, and we need a lot more smaller homes. We don't need a lot more big homes. We need a lot of individuals who are occupying big homes with empty bedrooms to open up that space for some families who need the space.
Yeah.
Years ago, there's a woman named Shay Solomon. Jay, you remember Shay?
Yeah.
And she's really brilliant. And she made this was, 15, 16 years ago, I was talking to her. And her comment was, we don't have a homeless problem. We have a generosity problem. We've got banks that own houses that are empty. I mean, there's a whole paradigm shift around looking at housing our most vulnerable folks and looking at affordable housing. And, we're all clever, creative people. It seems like we need to open the box on that one a little bit and start to explore some alternatives on how to use the housing stock that we already have and make it function for walkable, safe, awesome communities. So that's my spiel.
It's a perfect way to end it. Good to see you guys.
Thank you guys so much. And for all the attendees and everybody, there's going to be a cocktail hour. So if you jump on there, you'll be able to cycle through and connect with different attendees. So check that out. And Jay, D, Zach, you guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing. We're excited for the rest of the event and everything. So
wish we had more time.
Yeah, you guys are still great. We can keep talking if you guys want a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, are we live still? Or
Yeah, I think you're still live, so
great. I love the attention.
yeah, keep it going. I love listening to you guys.
I wanted to offer, if anybody wants to email me questions, I'm happy to try to field them for you. I also have kind of a helpful how-to book, and I'm happy to send that out for free if you email me at DEE at padtinyhouses.com. I'm happy to send that out.
It's a good book.
Thank you, Jay.
Everything you do is so cute and informative and funny.
All right, you guys, enjoy the rest of the weekend, and thanks for hopping in. It's really cool to be on a screen with some of my biggest heroes.
Me too.
Tell me about it. That's so amazing. I mean, literally, you guys have been inspiring. So.
And it goes around, doesn't it?
Technology for the win.
Well, I look forward to seeing everybody's individual presentations too.
Yeah.
Make sure you can get the video and the audio to work.
Yeah. Well,
all right. Take care, you guys.
Good stuff, you guys. Really appreciate it. It's been fun.
It has been fun. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.